So welcome to another Thursday Thought. So the challenge with carbon is that it's not the amount of carbon we produce at a given point in time. It is the accumulation of carbon that we have produced over a long period of time. In fact, carbon stays in the atmosphere for up to 100 years, which is what I learned out of the presentation. So we have to look at it holistically and not just at a point in time. Obviously, the Davos 2023 has been going on. And I've watched a couple of the presentations, but one of the most interesting ones I saw was one from Gill Pratt, who's the chief scientist at Toyota, also the CEO of Toyota Research Institute. I've borrowed from some of his slides. I just want to share with you his insights, which I think are really interesting, and I think that we should all be thinking about this limited resource, lithium, in maybe a different way. The other really interesting thing is obviously lithium-ion batteries are the key driver to electric vehicles. And what you can clearly see in this chart, so this is from 2016 all the way up to 2040, and you can see this is the amount of lithium-ion required. So there's a base requirement in green, and then on the upside is the blue side. And the bar charts actually represent the amount of lithium that will be available going forward into the future. What's also interesting is that this chart also illustrates the number of mines that will be coming online in the next couple of years. And as you can see, there's a huge gap. So the amount of lithium that we'll be able to produce versus the amount of lithium required is actually a big mismatch. There's a big gap. And this, as I said, considers the future mines that are coming on board. And what he also talks about in the presentation is the fact that it takes 10 to 15 years for one of these lithium mines to come online and actually start producing lithium. However, it takes 2 to 3 years to produce a battery manufacturing plant. So we're going to have an influx of battery manufacturing plants in the next couple of years. However, not enough lithium to supply those battery manufacturing plants. So I think there is a lithium problem, and we need to think of lithium as a scarce resource going forward. So he also talks about maybe using lithium in a different way. So he uses an example of 100 cars, internal combustion cars, gasoline cars, that produce on average about 250 grams per kilometer of carbon dioxide. And so these white cars represent non-electrified vehicles. And what he talks about is that they produce an average of 250 grams per kilometer of carbon dioxide. He also goes on to explain the different types of vehicles coming into the future. We obviously have fully battery electric vehicles like we're all familiar with. We have plug-in hybrids, and a plug-in hybrid is essentially a car that runs on a battery but has a small internal combustion engine within it. So when the battery runs out, the internal combustion engine can actually charge the battery up. And then we have the historical hybrid vehicles that actually run on an internal combustion engine but supported by a battery. So what he talks about is if you take a typical battery electric vehicle that would require approximately 100 kilowatts of battery power. Basically what you would do is reduce the overall average of these 100 vehicles down to approximately 248 grams of carbon dioxide being produced. So as you can see, 1% adoption of battery electric vehicles doesn't have a really big impact. However, if you take the same amount of lithium and batteries produced and create a plug-in hybrid, you're able to produce 6 vehicles. And as you can see, the average amount of carbon dioxide produced is 244 grams for the whole fleet. So as you can see, maybe producing plug-in hybrids actually makes more sense than making one battery electric vehicle. And if you look at the typical hybrid vehicle and you basically produce a lot more hybrid, you are able to produce a lot more hybrid vehicles with the same amount of lithium. The actual average for the whole fleet actually comes down to 205 grams. And I really think that this is an interesting way of looking at how we use our limited resource in the form of lithium more effectively to bring the average of the fleet carbon dioxide emissions down. And I think this is especially interesting for environments where electricity is not always available, plug-in options are not always available, maybe rethinking the way we use our lithium more holistically is probably something I think we need to consider. Here's another Thursday thought.